Spirit. Welcome. And I only just realised when I was having a little look through some ideas I wanted to make sure I shared with you, that Unbound Spirit, the initials of Unbound Spirit are us, US. And we are all one, there is no separation. And this gathering, a satsang, is a gathering of people for spiritual purposes, is what it says if you look it up. But whatever people conceive of spiritual, essentially it's about a gathering of people who have an awareness of their true essence and have an awareness that we are spiritual beings on a human journey, and that as we gather together there is a greater synergy, the esprit de corps, all of us together, we will experience our unbound spirit, which is always there, always there. And so, as we've done before I start talking more about our unbound spirit and how we can really live and experience it and transform and transcend any of the suffering, because essentially a lot of humans are suffering, they're in a lot of pain. Now, when we connect and experience our true spirit, it doesn't mean we won't have challenges in life, it doesn't mean we won't have things to work out, it doesn't mean we won't have big projects to uncover and do, or whatever it might be, but we won't suffer. And unfortunately, part of the identification with the mind, which is common in a lot of humans who have forgotten their true essence, is they suffer. So this is about finding our freedom, our essence. So first, as we did in a couple of the events we've done, I thought we could Om together, because the sound of Om is the sound of the whole universe. It holds all the knowledge of all the universe, which we all hold within all of us. We are all that is. We are everything that ever was and ever is and is within us all. And the sound it's the chest and the heart. The tummy and the chest first, the A sound, and it comes up through the throat, and then through the nose. So the abdominal region goes right through to the brain. So the sound is an inner sound. If you can think of it as that sound moving through your body, and again clearing away any of the thoughts, any of the tensions, so if we start with 3 conscious breaths, so when I mean conscious breaths, that is the breath anchors the mind and brings us into the body, and the body can't be anywhere but here and now. So what we do is we'll breathe deeply into the tummy, and then there's a gap, and in that gap there is that space of oneness, that space of the all-pervading truth and our true essence. We breathe out all the tension. So we'll do 3 of those, and then we'll just move into Omming. At your own pace, and experience the stillness and silence which is within us all. It's always there, it's never not. It exists all the time. There isn't anything to find, it's there already, it's the uncovering of it. So if we begin, and if you are too hot, do open the door, it's fine. Because again, anything anybody wants to do, because I don't know that I can open these doors, but we could open that one and have a through breathe. And just rest in that presence. That's the true nature of human beings. Presence. That exists whatever is going on in the outer realms, whatever is going on in the body, whatever is going on in the mind. This presence, this stillness, it's the true nature of human beings, not attached to any activity of the mind. It may be doing things, it may have its own streams of thought it wants to follow, but if you can just be in your beingness, in the presence, it's the beingness and the presence and the ease of now. It's nothing you have to find. It's always there. And throughout the day, one of the ways to always remember it. After a time, you'll never not have a part of you aware, an awareness of who you are at all times. But as you're moving to that place, the breath can help you anchor the mind again, just breathing into the tummy and feeling yourself anchor into the body. And our presence can shine through at all times. So throughout the day, we can just take a breath and come back into that ease and that stillness. So we'll just rest in the beingness for another couple of minutes. Namaste. So, the unbound spirit is always there. Always there. Our unbound spirit. And we can feel it. I don't know, can you feel it when you chant? And when we're just here together in this space? That the energy just is loving and joyous and supportive, and the true nature of us as spiritual beings. There is the essence of us, the nature of us is to be love and be free, and that is our birthright, and that is who we are. But as we witness, both obviously in our own lives, but actually also out in the world, that people aren't free and people are trapped, and they're trapped by the bricks that they've laid over their spirit, and we've laid it over ourselves. It's one of the things of freeing our spirit and experiencing ourselves as the unbound spirit, is to know that we may not as humans have the awareness of why it happened. And obviously, as you know, I think that my role as a therapist is helpful because people take shortcuts, because we can't really shortcut the childhood wounding and the things that happened in this life that have led us to trap ourselves. Now, there's two things going on here. One thing is, if I'm working with somebody when they're first exploring their life, I wouldn't go and say to them, well, you've done that, because clearly a little child or a teenager or any of the things that happen, we don't have the awareness of what has gone on and why there's the traumas that happen, because a lot of traumas happen to a lot of people. And if we're going to go too quickly, then people can get confused, because to take responsibility, we have to recognise that we've trapped ourselves, but of course, as humans, it's not our fault and we didn't mean to. So I'm kind of teaching this is contradictory in many ways. Yes, so don't try and use your minds too much with my contradictory, because that way, there's a freedom in knowing that somehow we trapped ourselves, but there's also a necessity that to unbind us, we have to go from a perspective of our human journey. It's not our fault, and we didn't intend to put ourselves into situations where we got very hurt or very lost or very controlled, or all the things that happen to us. So it is really important that there is a process of healing that needs to be embarked on, that there isn't a rush in it, and that by taking responsibility for our taking the bricks off and freeing our spirit and feeling that essence that we can feel if we chant or meditate or just be together in a safe space, that is our true essence. But to take the bricks off, there is a process, and it isn't as simple as some of the spiritual teachings say. So I know that if we turn within and we glimpse our true self, it's often said that once that's happened, then we're free. But my experience with people is that's not true, because that people do glimpse freedom. They glimpse the unbound spirit. They glimpse that they're none of their conditionings. They're none of their trauma. They're none of their attachments. And they'll glimpse it, and they'll glimpse it in meditation, or they'll glimpse it at whatever time they might suddenly feel that truth. But then they'll often pick it all up again. So I do think that the glimpsing of it is vital, but that isn't it. And unfortunately, that means, it's again, I think a lot of society is like this, that it says things are quicker than it is, and it isn't quick. It's now, and now, and now, and now, and now, and then the loops can go round again. So if you are in a space where you want to feel that freedom, feel that joy, experience your presence at all times, then it is a matter of commitment, and there is a degree of consistent and consistent discipline. And I always smile when I say that, because I've grown up with my father. I did grow up with my father, who was big on discipline, but actually it is a discipline. It is a discipline to, as I say, so going back, as children, all of us will have had somewhere where we didn't get our needs met, somewhere where we got hurt, somewhere where we weren't heard, where we weren't seen, where we weren't given the freedom to be the free spirit that we all are, and not through any, sometimes people overtly are hurting us, but even that, they couldn't do any different from their own wounding. And so it's not to condone behaviours, but it's not to condemn, and it's to recognise that it's important to investigate where we got hurt, and investigate it, and any emotions that arise from that, because once we start to investigate where we may have been crushed or pushed aside or hurt or abused, or all of the things that can happen, the emotions that can rise up, which can be a range from desperate defeat, huge anger, there can be so many ranges, and people aren't taught how to clear. Well, I think there's more perhaps being taught now, but it's the most important bit to free our spirit, is to be willing to investigate. Now, how we investigate is to see in this, now we're in a time-space continuum, is to witness where things aren't working out, or even if they are working out, where we might be feeling hurt, feeling rejected, feeling reactive, feeling all manner of different things. So it's in the now, or I say the now, but this part of our life, wherever we're at, that we can find often the arrows to where we were hurt, and it didn't happen as we wanted when we were little. Most of the people here have already investigated massively their childhood kind of processes, but there comes a point, of course, where it's irrelevant, because the clearing has been such that you understand that you're sensitive to, have a feeling a bit like I said, I haven't got anything that's in my being that thinks I should have done the oming better, which was one of the my things, that I had to do things that should have been better. It should have been, if it was running, it was good, but it should have been better. And that, I'm here with all of you, that I should, but that's nothing in my being now. So we have to be honest if it is in our being. We have to be honest if we feel, what our motivations are. Are we doing things because we want to please people? Are we doing it because we, feel that that's a pattern that was set up, that it's part of societal rules that we've got to be good to people, or whatever it might be. It's a never-ending investigation as to what our motivations are, because if we're still and we're in our essence and we're in our presence and we're here and now, and there's no layers of conditioning, then of course we can trust, everybody can trust us, because they can trust that whatever we're doing, we're not going to be resentful later, we're not going to go and be exhausted because we're always doing things for people, or we're not going to say no because we were asked to do things by our mother or father. All of the things, it's every little thing, and it's only really us who will know where our motivations are from. And there is no free spirit if we're doing anything out of obligation, or ought tos, or shoulds, or could do's, should do's, or nothing. And of course society trains us. I think people are trained by their families, who've been trained by their families, who've been trained by society, who've been trained by education, who've been trained by the culture they're in, to give us these layers of conditioning. And so we've all been given layers and layers of beliefs and conditionings, and our conditionings, because we're, essentially born to a similar arena, all of us, our conditionings will be different. Some people born in a different culture, a different country, a different religion, all the different influences, and they're so ingrained. And then there'll be the beliefs. Then of course we've got our adaptations to the wounding. So there'll be different adaptations with different peoples. One child who's been told to shush will be the noisiest child on the planet. Another child that's been told to shush will be the quietest child on the planet. And only we can start to unravel our own adaptations. And obviously I talk about this a lot, and I work with that. So work with people investigating what's their adaptation. And I remember when I was doing the relationship training Imago course for over a period of months, and I came in and was smiling to the tutor when I arrived, and she said, "What a lovely smile. Is that an adaptation or is it you?" And I said, "It's me now," but it was an adaptation because I was a non-smiley child. I was a watchly child. What wasn't I? Wens is always I always have Wens in the audience. Wendy's known me for 61 years. 61 years. I was a watchful child, watched, and I didn't smile. And I remember hearing somebody had told one of my friends, who was 6, so children will repeat things, told them that I was supercilious. And I didn't know what supercilious meant, but I knew it wasn't good. I knew it wasn't good, and I was 6, but then I started to learn that people thought these things about me because and I remember my Auntie Helen's friend, Auntie Mabel, everybody was Auntie in those days, saying that she felt for me as a little girl because she said I was under the table watching everything. And so I learned that smiling worked. It worked, and it changed things, and smiling changed things. But as I developed and worked with all of this, I then also realised that I had to heal the bit that needed to smile to make things work. I still smile. So I was able to say it was an adaptation, that it's now a natural, and I don't just smile. I don't smile to make things all right, which is what I used to do a lot of. I used to, somebody wouldn't look quite right, so I'd smile. So I'm giving that demonstration because they're tiny things. We've got to look at all the ways we're doing, what's going on, because it doesn't mean we won't do the thing. It's very nice to smile to people, but it doesn't mean we're smiling at the people who's being horrid to us to try and make it nice. Or we might, but we do it consciously as that will help. But it's consciousness. So it's looking at those adaptations, and just being aware in every moment. Where's that come from? And it's important. It can feel a lot because a lot of people are just living, but they're living out these patterns, and people are wasting their lives often because we spend a lot of time we spend an awful lot of time sleeping, and I was saying this today, we spend a lot of time sleeping and eating and cleaning our teeth and doing all that. So we do spend a lot of our life that isn't really doing anything. So there's about half of it left. And how are we living it? And many, many, many people are living it on programs and patterns and conditioning. And that's not free at all. The Unbound Spirit is free. And the Unbound Spirit can shine through. So the clearing, so the investigation of our adaptations is ongoing. Is it an adaptation, or is it coming from just our essence, or is it coming from that we survived by making sure everyone else was all right, or we survived by keeping well away from everything and retiring to our room? There's all sorts of, everybody's different, but we'll know. And obviously when I work one-on-one with people, we can work it out more deeply. But then looking at, where did I get that belief? What is that belief? Nadia and I were in Boots the other day. We're not going to give anybody away. I just have to think when I'm being filmed. So we're in Boots, and I'm very intuitive, and I saw this guy, and he was taking things off the shelf, and I thought, he's stealing those. So I just tell. And I said and then anyway, he then went back into the shop. He was putting them in his bag, just a few things. And I said to Nadia, I thought he was taking those things. And so Nadia, and I let Jill, well, I obviously was wrong. Anyway, Nadia then was curious. So he followed to watch him. And then what he did was he kind of did a wiggly move, went out the door. And so, and then Nadia said, oh, he's gone. And I said, oh well, good on him, whatever. Now, I've got no conditioning that I should go and get that guy and tell the police. Now, a lot of people are completely conditioned. I was just like, no, another time I might have, because it would be a different situation. I listened to him here. He just picked up a few items and I don't know what he needed them for, but nothing in me, because I'm not conditioned. Well, not now anyway, I don't know. I just watched it, and then we went past him on the step and he was doing whatever he was doing. And the thing is, people are so conditioned. They're conditioned to the moralities, the rules of the land. As I say, I'm not saying another time I wouldn't stop somebody, because I don't know. But in that situation, nothing in me was going to do that. So we look at our conditionings, and we have to clear them, because then we can make a true decision from an ethical place, a true place, and real. We need to be looking at, if we think doing well is the important thing, where did we first get that? Now, that doesn't mean we wouldn't want to strive for excellence. Why wouldn't we? We want to express ourselves on this planet and do our thing. But if we're doing it because we're trying to please our father, or we're trying to prove ourselves to, the people at school who bullied us, or all of these things that happen to us, then doesn't mean once we've worked on that, we won't still strive for excellence, but we can do it with freedom. We can let our spirit be free, and we can do it with a gay abandon, just like, that's, the Unbound Spirit. But also, there will be the very sad elements to our conditioning and our programs and our patterns, where it makes us sad, makes us depressed, makes us feel, not that we don't fit in, that people don't like us. There's so many areas, whatever it is, uncomfortable, worried about what people think. Clearly, from my talk last night at the blah, 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 I have no worries about what people think. I had a thing I had to clear, that I was wrong. I don't have that now, clearly, because I told everybody about all my proposals and marriages, and then announced that I was the best relationship therapist they'd ever find. And that kind of freedom is wonderful, because I haven't got a thing of what will they think. And I had to work with that when I was younger, and working everything out. I had to work with thinking what people would think, but that's the most trapping thing. People will think what they're going to think. So we can be free of that. So we need to be free of anything that makes us sad, anything that isn't very nice. People can have, some very, I'm not saying anyone here, but the obnoxious patterns that come up where their reactivity ends up being not, bombastic or not very nice, dysfunctional reactive conditionings where there's a lot of dysfunction. We need to be so thorough with our own freeing, because if we start really clearing all those patterns, and we do it daily, and we're really honest if we feel judgmental of somebody, or we feel that we're somehow superior, or we feel inferior anywhere, because we're all one. There isn't any separation. And that doesn't mean that the person who is acting out, who is caught in their mind, who is caught in their patterns of abuse or whatever it might be, don't when we stay around them, but we recognise it couldn't be any different, and that it's about ultimately us. That's what I mean about the childhood wounding. We need to work with it so that we get to the point where we're taking full responsibility for what has happened, without then living in the blame and the anger. Now, those things need to be cleared, so we don't need to be in denial of them ever, because otherwise they'll trap us, and we're tethered. We're not an unbound spirit. We're a tethered soul, because we're tethered by our pain. So the more we clear, and that is ongoing. It's and we'll have shifts. We have a shift where we recognise that the same thing is going on, and we haven't got the same reactivity, or we're not feeling the same towards somebody. We're not feeling wronged by them, or the yearning for them. There are so many places where people are entangled and trapped years on. You know, I've worked with people who, well, actually not necessarily these people, somebody came to me who wanted to move on from the parting of her and her partner because she had friends who hadn't moved on 10 years on, and she was, I'm not going to be that, because people hang on and hang on and hang on, and they waste their lives. I mean, they genuinely waste their lives. This life we have is a gift. It doesn't always feel like it, I know, when it's a difficult time, but this work helps it not be suffering, as I said, and this opportunity we have to have this experience. And the real experience is as the unbound spirit. Then because if we've turned within, and as I say, there is that saying, once we've caught the glimpse, we're free. As I say, that's not my experience with people. I think that if someone glimpses and then they immerse themselves immediately in spiritual life and traditions, and they don't have work and family and things to get distracted by, then they're more likely to keep opening their awareness. But often people get stuck again. But if we have that experience of our true essence, and then we do this work to keep clear, then our presence shines through. So we'll still have conditioning, all of us. We don't want not to have a certain conditioning of, as you know, being able to talk and walk, and just there's a lot of conditionings that are useful to speak. You know, whatever people have taught to speak bilingually at the beginning. We might want to embrace the conditionings of how we are in society. You know, there's lots of things, but it's a conscious thing. The conditionings are useful, but our presence will shine through, our essence will shine through all the time. There's a different quality to a person who's not reactive. They're very safe to be around, and somebody who's also not doing things out of obligation or guilt or all the manner of things that a lot of people live by, or the struggle's gone, all these things that, now I'm not saying it's immediate. We have an evening like tonight, and obviously a lot of you have come and seen me individually, but also come to a few of my events, and the thing with a gathering is we've got the same orientation, so it can help with the getting the layers off, because it is like an onion really, this work. You peel off a layer and you peel off a layer and you peel off a layer, and then you suddenly have that, you know, you're lighter and lighter and lighter, and the reactivity isn't there, the energy's higher. You have, you know, a lot of people are very tired in this world. They're really, you know, tired. They get back from work, they're stressed, they're tired, they flump into, you know, the sofa or look at the television or whatever. There isn't a need for that tiredness. That tiredness is mental. It's the mind that makes us tired. I mean, obviously we have a body that needs to sleep and needs to recover if we've gone and run hundreds of miles over the downs or whatever we might do. So it isn't that we're not in a body that needs to be looked after and given, you know, water and food and sleep. I'm not saying that, but that tiredness that is prevalent, where people are exhausted a lot of the time and they're stressed a lot of the time and they think it's a normal state, and it's, you know, all over the place that it's talked about. That isn't what is the natural state. We can be with a wellspring of energy all the time, our source energy. We are the source, and when we start to clear and clear and clear and clear, we'll start to get that experience of the source, that we are the source. And once we have that experience of the source, then we start to recognize that this is a limitless supply of energy that we have within us, the uncreated, the unmanifest, the unborn. It's within us all to create and experience. But the mind, because there's such an identification with the mind with most people, they believe themselves to be the mind. And this work, and this particularly tonight, we're going to investigate how to get the clarity and be able to, one thing with doing the oming and the meditation, we can drop between the thoughts and experience that stillness, and actually recognize that the mind isn't who we are. It thinks, it does all this thing, but generally a lot of people's mind just does it all the time on its own. When we get to be in our stillness and in our center, we can be the master of our body and our mind and use it as the tool it is, because it's an incredible tool. It's creative, it's wonderful. it can be part, but if it's coming from the source, mind on its own, there's no newness, it's just in cycles. And often people's lives are lived in patterns, continual patterns, continual programs, even if they're achieving, even if they're doing good, results in their life. If it's coming out of the patterns and programs, it isn't necessarily giving them joy, isn't giving them the freedom of the unbound spirit. What really we need to think in terms of is to be able to see without the mind and listen without the mind. So that might sound an kind of complicated thing, but generally people are seeing with their projections. So they're seeing with everything they ever have known before. So whether it's a person in front of them, whether it's anything, a talk they might listen to, a vista, they're generally seeing it through the filter of their mind. Whereas if we can start to get to meet a person, see anybody, see anything, have an experience like tonight with just new eyes all the time and new ears. And that's why I teach intentional dialogue to people, where it's about listening without projecting what the person's saying from their own agenda, their own map. Listening to that person. And intentional dialogue teaches that you will just listen, check you've heard what someone says, stretch into their world. So that's one of the methods that we can then get into the world. And then if we've got judgments coming up, if we've got opinions coming up, if we've got beliefs coming up, the work is to clear them out, because it's happening everywhere. So that's why this work, as I say, is very exacting, that to really know the unbound spirit is daily. It's daily conversation, daily, how we interact with the world. Think in terms of, you don't even try to think it, but think in terms. Don't think it. The language is so funny, isn't it? Don't think this, but think in terms. See, I wouldn't even say think. See with new eyes and listen with new ears. And do that all the time. And then you're going to be more likely to be more connected to the source energy, the truth of who you are. You're also going to notice when you are judgmental, you project, any of the ripples on the lake. So sometimes you will have your own reactivity of it to be with either superiority, inferiority, should do, could do. Sometimes you'll project onto the person, and it's so quick, all these things, and we have to be so honest with ourselves as to whether we're doing it onto a situation. It can be out global, it can be political, it can be sporting, it can be, I was talking today to someone about the football. It wasn't either anybody here. It was, and I was saying, people don't realise this, the collective thought form of negativity towards this team of young guys. I think they're quite young, little team, are they? Quite young people. That they project negativity on if they don't play well, and obviously they project massive if they do, and that's not conscious, and it's not an unbound spirit, and people aren't aware that because it's collective. They're not aware that that's bad for their spirit. Certainly bad for the boys' spirit. Are they boys? The young men's spirit. It's certainly bad for the people who are doing it. And of course, again, our society is thinking that's okay. And therefore, if the way we make the difference in the world, if we don't have to think in terms of making a difference, but actually the way we do is our own work and our own light shining and our own centeredness of, we can get joy and be delighted. We can support a team if we fancy supporting a team. We can, because that's part of this experience. It's fun. It can be great fun to go and cheer and get excited, but it's when it's out of centre, when it is to do with conditioning or some sort of an adaptation to try and fill something in yourself that isn't settled. Because I think people do that when they project. So it's really important to think in terms of it being a conscious thing, day by day by day by day by day, and turning within. So within, so without. It is always so within, so without. Always, always, always. If something goes on the outer realms, and sometimes it can look like, oh, that thing helped me do that, but there would have been an inner shift. So if we always think that the inner shift creates the outer experience, then if we travel within, we can really travel the whole world and beyond. And we can start to really experience that stillness, that silence, that emptiness. Because if we really, really, really get into that space of emptiness, even if we glimpse it occasionally and we feel that emptiness and we've got that emptiness and that source in our hand, we really then experience that the whole universe has come out of that. We've come out of that. We are that. We are all that is. We are the unbound spirit. We are all not separate. We are all one. But all of it, everything has come from the source. And we are the source. Now, again, you don't need to think these things. It's just having the experience of it. Because the more we try to think it and get the theory, that's not it. This unbound spirit is an experiential thing. You can't know it here. Knowing is experiencing. And that's the only way we know. And the only way we experience is, yes, of course, meditation and oming and all of those things are a useful tool. But they're not a useful tool if you just tick the box of your meditation in the morning and the evening. It's very good to do. What it is it is 24/7. 24/7 coming back to awareness, always loving yourself, always being kind. If you make a mistake, if you find you're cross with your colleague, your child, your parent, your dog, just forgive yourself. Or there's no forgiving, just clear it. Because there is, you don't need to forgive when it's cleared, it just goes. So it's really important you don't layer another layer of pain on top of already something that's come up. And then when you know you've got that nothingness, that emptiness, you start to experience that the truth of this creativity, as I said, the unborn, the unmanifest, the pure potential. And it's then the analogy of the seed that you break a seed open and there's nothing in it, and out of the seed comes a tree. And that's always just a way to think of this, that there's you break something open, there's nothing there, and everything comes from that. So that just having the play with that at all times, and recognize then that expansiveness, that unbound spirit. So the layers of clearing are ongoing. And they are this human journey, and we need to be doing that to experience the unbound spirit, and to basically have an amazing time here, because we can have an amazing time. And again, it's not really documented very much if we look out in the world, but we create our own reality. We can be the bright lights that are shining, and again, a collective of us all together is going to shine everything brighter and brighter and brighter. And if we have that emptiness, we can experience new dimensions. We experience completely different way of living. We know that love is the essence. Love is all there is. We will experience it because the going within, the clearing the wounds, as I said in the relationship workshop that we did, the barriers to love are within us. They're not outside us. It's all within us. And ultimately, when we're looking outside and we're going, I want that person to love me, and I want that person to say that, and I'm loved, I need that, we're lost. Actually, it's an inner journey, and then we will have the reflection of that love outside us, the more we clear the barriers within us. And so, the clear mind, essentially, the big work, it's the clearing work, but it's also really managing this mind. Because I say the mind is an amazing tool, but it needs to be that we have a still mind, that we turn it on and off, like language. We don't have to talk all the time, we don't have to think all the time, and we need to start learning how to really, really drop into that space. And so I'm going to, before I make you do some work between you, there's the three what they're called in Buddhism, 3 poisons, which are really important to investigate. And then I'm going to talk about areas of the mind to really work with. But the 3 poisons, this is Buddhist philosophy, but essentially it's relevant to all of us and everybody in the whole world, is that the things that limit us from the joy and the bliss and the space beyond the suffering of the duality of life is to be free from attachment, number one. And attachment is meaning attachment to wanting, grasping, of what I said about the relationship, yearning for things. That attachment, now it doesn't mean we won't experience our oneness and enjoy relationship and enjoy closeness and love between us, but it's the wanting and the grasping. That's what attachment is. And so many people want things. They want success, they want a relationship, they want, money, they want, now all of these things are wonderful, it's great, but it has to be that the primary work is the inner journey and the clearing work to get to a space of essence and truth and that ease that comes when we're free of thinking that thing outside us is going to make us happy. And without doubt, having worked and been in front of people for nearly 50 years now, the thing that makes people incredibly unhappy is thinking that that man or that woman is going to definitely make them happy, or that job is definitely going to make them happy, or winning that race is definitely going to make them happy, or getting that job is definitely going to make them happy. Without question, it may initially, the moment when they get it, because people do get things, but inevitably there will be trouble along the road with that thing, because it's not coming, it's not resolved them. It will be then the mirror to where they need to resolve within. The next thing is called aversion, and that's hatred, judgment, separation, going against other people. So it's really important that if we feel negative towards a person, that we look at ourselves. When we point a finger, those three, I'm always saying that. Really, really important. So that to just recognise all the time. Now that doesn't mean that if we're working through stuff where we've had people do us wrong, people abuse us, all the things that happen in life, that we don't process the pain that that's caused us. That is vital. So it isn't about going and skipping to love and light, which doesn't work because it's still there and it'll come up somewhere. So we need to do that. And then the third one is ignorance. Ignorance, yeah. And ignorance is about the delusion of separation, that we're separate. And therefore people are deluded and they live their lives chasing their mind, and it's everywhere. And I have no judgment of how people live their lives, but they're not particularly necessarily happy, or if they are, that's their life. And so I'm not saying that there aren't people who live their lives quite happily with the delusion of that they're separate and that this is it, but it's not the complete ease that can come when we know who we are. And as I say, there are plenty of people who live perfectly okay lives, so I would never, people ask me that and I say, well no, there's no need for them to do work if they don't want, but it's still not going to be the same expansiveness of recognition of our true self. So that's always to be worked on all the time. And then the bit we're going to work together on is get you to have these conversations together and do a bit of investigation, is to still the mind. Generally, there are probably more than this, but there are definitely 5 areas that people live in. I would say probably most people live with their mind in this state. And how can they possibly recognise their unbound spirit when their mind is doing the things I'm about to say? So the first is an addictive mind. So it's really important to investigate if there's anywhere where your mind is addictive. And most people, we're a addictive society. I mean, look at how the phone and television, and particularly the phone, and how the iPad with young people, and I say young people probably, but I think it's quite a thing that's given to children now to keep them quiet. And but it creates the addiction. Now obviously it has to be within the person, but it still feeds it. So anywhere is your mind addictive? Is it addicted to thinking? Is it addicted to, can't not check things? Is it there'll be areas where there's the relentlessness of it. Is it addicted to a certain way of thinking? Is it addicted to having to be right? Is it all manner of things? So the addictive mind, and be really thorough with your investigation. And then the next one is the negative mind. And it's very easy to find that not even realising it, there's a negativity. And obviously in our country with the weather, that is such a common one, where this summer, what's happened to summer? I have it most days, because I'm in Melbourne House, as most of you, a lot of you have visited me there, and there's a lift, and I never take the stairs. Renardi always takes the stairs. Anyway, not when he's with me. Anyway, people talk about how terrible it is, and they've come over to have a holiday, and it's ready. Now that's a very small thing, but the fact that that's the mind's natural thing is recognising where else it does it. Is it about people? Is it about the football? I mean, I really celebrate people doing their sport, doing their thing. I'm not particularly a football person. I do check what's going on, because I'm aware it's a very important thing to a lot of people. But some people are negative about the English team, some people are negative about the football, some people are negative about anything you can think of. Just keep an eye on...
Scottish.
Well, I did. Isn't it? People is checking all the time. What am I doing? Am I doing it? Negative mind. The next one is the slothful mind, which is a depressed mind. And of course, again, it's recognising, and again, not being hard on yourself. But if you're someone who the mind gets slothful, you can't be bothered to do anything, you can't do this, it leads to procrastination, it leads to feeling not good about yourself. That's quite a pattern in the world. Next one is the not present mind, scattered mind. Never able to sit. That goes with the addictive mind. They kind of dovetail really well, and not being able to be present, not listening to somebody, thinking about what you're going to say, thinking about your work, thinking about your to-do list. The scattered mind. Are you present? And then the indecisive mind, and that's this kind of schizophrenic mind, back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. Shall I, shan't I? Shall I, shan't I? Shall I, shan't I? Now, it's a difference to making a decision and weighing up pros and cons. That can be a very present and organised thing. But the shall I, shan't I can't make a decision, is a distraction. And all of those, the three poisons I mentioned are more about a way of being in the world, and they're for us to be conscious of. But this mind thing takes us away from presence and takes us away from the space. That means that you're going to be more aware of watching yourself in the world and seeing your patterns and your programs and your beliefs and your conditionings, and being conscious, because the mind is going and doing all these other things. So what I thought would just be interesting, give you move you around anyway, is just to go and be now with intentional dialogue. Some of you haven't been on my things where I've kind of taught it, but so what we'll do in the situation, and you'll probably go with someone who has done intentional dialogue. Essentially what it is somebody speaks and talks about their thing, and the other person listens. So rather than it being a normal conversation, one of you will have had an investigation and either be going, well, I'll do them all, or my particular one I want to work on is, this is where I see I'm stuck, or whatever. And the other person listens and will just check they've heard what's going on. So that's intentional dialogue, and you just chat to each other, probably spend, look at my thing, 20 minutes, so 10 minutes each. And you can swap back. You could do a 5 minute, 5 minute, 5 minute, 5 minute if that's more comfortable. I'll tell you every 5, or you do a whole 10 minutes of exploration, because sometimes, but it might be, it's more of a conversation back and forth. And then what you do is, if you're comfortable with it, obviously if anyone doesn't want their thing said out, I don't mind, but the other person will say what the person's working with, because that can be quite interesting to hear what's your own thing back, where someone else is saying it. So if if you're up for that, do you feel up for that?
Yeah.
Is there any dissenting? No, good. Only's all right for that? You're right, yes. Because it's quite useful if you've checked together that you've got it, you've heard it properly. You go, so what I've heard you say, so you repeat back, what I've heard you say is that you do all 5 all the time and you're never ever not doing them all. And it's and but you don't know how to even begin to stop. But you check and you say, and we could also have a little bit where you perhaps investigate where you think you could, where one you could work with, say it is all 5. Is there anywhere, you know, and then what we'll do is, come back, have a chat, and then 13, 23, 33, that's all right. And we can then, it's going very quickly, isn't it? But never mind. I always think perhaps we ought to just book a whole day. So then we'll come back and you share, but at least it gets the thing, these kind of together things, it's to not have to necessarily expose you, but it is to get things moving in you, that you're ready to do a predictive mind, the negative mind, the slothful mind, the scattered mind, or the indecisive mind. And we've all been exploring together how particularly one area is more prevalent than another. And therefore with that awareness, we can go into our everyday life with more awareness. We were just saying that awareness is the absolute key. So if we have an awareness all the time, so again, from a useful perspective, coming back with the breath into presence, how am I feeling, how am I moving, what am I thinking, so that we can catch where we're spiralling into our patterns. The other thing, which is really, really powerful, is if we've got an awareness that a particular arena is somewhere where we're going to get caught in the addiction to being right, or the addiction to being wrong, or the addiction to needing to be needed, because addiction is quite a a usual place where people are looking for that security outside themselves. So if we know our areas of greater vulnerability, what we can do in our daily life is, when we know we're going into that arena, have an awareness beforehand so that we're prepared, that the vulnerability in us, we can be prepared to look after our vulnerable self, so that we can almost be looking after the wounded child. We can be looking after the vulnerable self. We'll go in with the awareness that this could be a place where we're going to have our pattern arise, and therefore with that awareness we can actually consciously have our own workshops in everyday life, but we need to be very conscious. It might be going on TikTok, that because that we've obviously talked about that you might go on it, but see whether you can actually, okay, I'm going to look, I like football, I want to see what's happening, I'm going to just go and have a little check for 5 minutes and then I'm coming off, and rather than getting pulled into the next stream and the next stream. So you can consciously self-manage, and I think that is essentially it. And we have decided that 10 of you, we're all going to meet again for a whole day. And thank you. Amazing.
Thank you.